Before we begin, if you enjoy real chilling stories, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It really supports the channel and motivates me to share even more terrifying tales. Thank you, you're the best. Now, let's dive into what happened that night.
The terrible secret of the mirror. Don't look in it at night. It happened in France near Bordeaux. A couple passionate about antiques was traveling through the countryside in search of unique items for their home. In one of the old towns, they stumbled upon a small shop where the owner offered them a massive antique mirror. It had an exquisitely carved frame, and according to the antique dealer, it was over 200 years old. The mirror had darkened with age, and its surface was speckled with eerie stains. Attracted by the bargain price, the couple eagerly agreed to buy it. When the mirror was delivered to their home, they decided to place it in their son's room. 22-year-old Tom, a tall, athletic young man with green eyes, admired by many of his classmates. Night 1. Tom went to bed with his headphones on. The mirror stood across from his bed, with some of his clothes draped over its frame. In the middle of the night, he was startled awake by a strange sound that somehow broke through his music, a quiet but unsettling whisper. He took out his headphones and looked around. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. The clothes that had been hanging on the mirror were now on the floor, neatly piled. Shrugging it off, he went back to sleep. Night 2. The same routine. Tom went to sleep with music playing, the room tidy thanks to his mother. But sometime after midnight, he woke up with a chilling sensation, like someone was breathing against the back of his neck. A shiver ran down his spine. Getting up, he walked to the kitchen, lit a cigarette, and tried to calm himself. It must have been just a vivid dream, he thought. Returning to his room, he stopped in front of the mirror and studied his reflection. Everything was normal. Even his tousled hair looked good on him. But as he turned to get into bed, unease crept in. He glanced back at the mirror, and for a split second he thought he saw something behind him. Yet when he spun around, there was nothing. He spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, haunted by vague nightmares. Night 3. Tom was already on edge. The day had been a disaster. His studies weren't going well. He got a flat tire near the house, and he had argued with his parents. Just a minute past midnight, he woke up in sheer terror. An invisible, icy hand had touched his back. He leaped out of bed, turned on the light, and scanned the room. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. The mirror was fogged up. The air wasn't humid or warm, making it all the more bizarre. He wiped the glass with his hand and froze. A young woman stared back at him. She was completely nude, but her skin was wrinkled and dry, resembling that of an old witch. Her face was contorted in horror. He spun around. Nothing. Looked back at the mirror. Empty. With a pounding heart, he crawled into bed, but an overwhelming sense of impending doom lingered. Night 4. Tom felt drained and sick. That night was quiet until precisely 5:59 a.m. A blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. "Help me!" The voice belonged to a woman, echoing from within the room. Panicked, he rushed to his parents, but they dismissed his fear. His mother, a doctor, checked his temperature. It was 102 degrees Fahrenheit, 39.1 degrees Celsius. Hallucinations from a fever, she reasoned, giving him medicine and a shot to help him sleep. Night 5. Tom dreaded falling asleep. He walked up to the mirror. It seemed darker. Leaning closer, he felt an unnatural warmth radiating from the glass. He barely made it back to bed before blacking out. This time, he found himself in front of an old mansion. A young woman sat on the porch, the same one from the mirror, but now alive, fresh, and dressed in a flowing white dress. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. "I'm Maria. I came to you," she said softly, extending her hand. As he touched her fingers, realization struck. This was the same figure that had haunted him. She led him inside. There stood the mirror, but in pristine condition. "He's close. Run," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Tom jolted awake. His eyes darted to the mirror. Scrawled across the fogged-up glass was a single word: help. Night 6. Feeling weaker than ever, he decided to respond. He breathed on the glass and wrote, "How?" But before he could return to bed, he collapsed. His parents found him unconscious and called an ambulance. Doctors injected him with antibiotics and a sedative. That night, he dreamt of the house again. Maria was crying. "I wanted to help you, but he never lets go of those more beautiful than him." Tom awoke suddenly, but she was there, standing beside his bed, her face now disfigured. "Forgive me," she whispered before vanishing. Night 7. By morning, Tom was gone. His body deteriorated rapidly and doctors found no explanation. He was buried 4 days later. After the funeral, his parents and his best friend Alexander stepped into his room. They froze in horror. Tom stood inside the mirror holding Maria's hand. Their eyes pleaded for help. Then in an instant, 2 skeletal hands emerged from the darkness within the glass, dragging their spirits inside. The last thing they saw was a message forming on the mirror. "Help us." His father shattered the mirror, burying the shards. But at night, the house no longer echoed with cries, only quiet laughter. The skull in the bag. I worked for the police department in a small town in Montana. One day we received a complaint. A homeless man was wandering around town with a bag containing a human skull. Well, typical for a vagrant, but we had to check it out. We radioed around asking officers to detain him if spotted. By evening, they brought him in. The old man was dirty, reeked, but sober. Sure enough, there was a skull in the bag. We started questioning him about where he got it, but he was talking nonsense. He couldn't remember his name or where he was from. Of course, the skull could be linked to a crime, so we decided to confiscate it. As we started packing it up, the old man had a meltdown, screaming, "Don't take it, I'll die." My partner, Alex, decided not to torment the man, who was clearly out of his mind. He called in a forensic expert to examine the skull. Meanwhile, he kept questioning the vagrant. The man claimed it was his skull. Not in the sense that it belonged to him, but that it was his own skull, part of his skeleton. Alex, a patient man, asked how that was possible if his head was still intact. The vagrant couldn't explain, but insisted it was true. The forensic expert arrived, examined the skull, and said it was old, but to be sure, he needed to take a sample. He took a scalpel and started scraping something off the bone. Suddenly, the vagrant grabbed his head and screamed in pain. The expert stopped, collected the samples in a piece of paper, and put it in his pocket. The vagrant calmed down. We decided to run a quick check and send the vagrant to a mental hospital. Alex called other departments asking if there had been any reports of grave robbing. Nothing. Then he tried to find a hospital that would take him, but everywhere refused, saying they were full or understaffed. Alex decided to keep him overnight and went home. The next morning he returned to find the vagrant lying on a bench outside the station. Turns out he smelled so bad that the officers on duty had kicked him out. He cried and begged to be let back in, but eventually fell asleep. They also said he'd been rambling about a sorcerer or an evil spirit, so they nicknamed him the Evil Spirit because of the unbearable stench. By noon, the forensic expert came back with a preliminary analysis. The skull was old, but it didn't seem like it had been buried for long. It was over 100 years old, but he couldn't be more precise. Alex called the local museum, asking if any bones had gone missing. Nothing. Then he got busy with other cases, and the vagrant stayed on the bench. Alex brought him food, but there was nowhere to send him. A few days passed. During that time, the vagrant told his story. It was strange but detailed. He said he used to live a good life, had a family, but forgot everything. The only thing he remembered was his fear of death. He was so afraid of dying that he met some kind of entity. A man with black eyes, no whites, and a reddish glint in his pupils. The man told him he would die if his skull was shattered, but if he carried his own skull with him, he could live as long as he wanted. He agreed, took the skull, and from that moment, forgot his name, family, and everything else. Alex felt sorry for him, but there were more pressing matters, especially since a serial killer was on the loose in the county and everyone was busy with that. Alex's boss got angry when he heard about the vagrant. He decided the skull wasn't evidence and ordered it destroyed. He took a hammer and smashed the skull to pieces. "Here, give it to him," he said. Alex went outside, and the vagrant was lying by the bench. His head was deformed as if someone had smashed it with a hammer. He was dead. We called the same forensic expert. He shook his head. He'd never seen an injury like that. There was no blood, but the skull was shattered. The case was closed. The body and skull fragments were cremated. All documents were destroyed to avoid further questions.
I guess most people do. I don't remember much from that time. I must have been around 2 years old. The memories are scattered and dreamlike. A wide street passing by outside, my mom's face with red curls brushing against me, my crib with towering, impossibly high rails, a little pink horse dangling above me on a string, and my grandmother. She would stand beside my crib, leaning over and talking to me. She wore a white headscarf tied low on her forehead, almost over her eyes. Her brown hand reaching out to me smelled of earth and milk. I remember being scared of her at first, even whimpering when she came close. That wrinkled, rough, warm hand brushing my cheek frightened me. When I cried, my mom would come running, pick me up, and give me a bottle of milk. My grandmother would just stand nearby, watching us from under her brow. I would babble, "Baba, Baba," and my mom would smile. Eventually, I got used to my grandmother, even looked forward to seeing her. Most often, she'd sit on a chair by the door, and when I woke up, I'd grab the bars of my crib, stand up, and call for her. She would smile and come over to me. Sometimes I could hear my parents arguing in the other room. It made me scared, but my grandmother would calm me down and the fear would pass. Then we moved. I don't remember the move itself very well, but I remember the walls in the new room were green instead of blue, and my mom started sleeping beside me. My dad wasn't with us anymore, and neither was my grandmother. I cried. I missed her. Eventually, I got a new grandmother. My mom's mom moved in with us. She wasn't like the one before. She smelled sweet and floral, not like earth and milk. But I adjusted quickly. I grew older and learned more about the world. The image of my first grandmother started to fade. I came to understand she must have been my dad's mother, and I never asked my mom about her. I already knew what divorce was and why my dad wasn't around. When I was 16, I found an old black plastic bag in a closet filled with photographs. To my delight, one of them showed my grandmother. In the faded black and white picture, she stood beside a wooden fence, her hands clasped, branches of a mountain ash tree leaning down toward her white headscarf. I kept the photo and hid it in my jewelry box. I didn't show my mom. Now I'm 22. I'm married and pregnant with a baby boy. Just a few days ago, my mom and I were going through my old baby things. She had saved a lot, picking out items for the new baby. We started chatting, and I asked what I was like as a toddler. She was saying the usual things, but then she said something strange. She said she and my dad divorced because of me. And thank God they did, she added. She said that when I was 2, she couldn't sleep anymore. because I kept talking to someone in my room at night, that she would break out in cold sweat when she saw me standing in my crib, smiling and reaching out toward nothing, that when she picked me up, she'd constantly catch a glimpse, just in the corner of her eye, of someone standing behind her. She said my room always smelled like fresh earth, that the door kept opening and closing on its own. She said my dad called her crazy, and that one night she woke up and saw her, my grandmother, standing over their bed. She said she was so terrified she wet herself. My dad woke up, they fought, and it was the beginning of the end. I sat there, stunned, listening. I always thought she was Dad's mom, I told her. I remember her. My mom shook her head. Sweetheart, your dad's parents live in the Pacific Northwest. They never visited us. I brought her the photo I'd found years ago. She flinched when she saw it. I don't know who this is, she said. I remember that bag of pictures, but I don't know where they came from. I just threw them into a suitcase when we moved and later put them in the closet. I told my husband everything. He was a little skeptical. I hope he believes me. I really do. Because I don't want him to leave me when our son starts reaching into an empty room and saying, "Grandma."
Before we begin, if you enjoy real chilling stories, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It really supports the channel and motivates me to share even more terrifying tales. Thank you. You're the best. Now, let's dive into what happened that night. This happened not too long ago. My parents had gone out to a birthday party at some friend's house, and I stayed home. I never really liked those people. You know the type. Always nosing into your life, asking when you're gonna settle down, get married, all that. Every family has at least one couple like that. But anyway, that's not the point, so I'm home alone. It's around 6 p.m., I think. Wintertime, so it's already dark outside. I was watching a movie, but I could barely concentrate. There was a huge snowstorm going on, and since I live in a private house, all I could think about was how I'd have to shovel my way out in the morning. Again, it started getting cold, so I stoked the wood stove, made myself some tea, and sat by the window. The storm had calmed down. Sky cleared up. Full moon, bright like a spotlight. But the wind kept howling like crazy. I stepped out on the porch for a smoke. That's when I heard our dog, Buddy, a big German shepherd, start barking his lungs out. Not his usual bark. This was the someone's here kind of bark. I figured someone might be at the gate. Went out to check. No one. Still, Buddy wouldn't calm down, barking like he was losing his mind. "Cut it out, idiot," I said. "No one's there." Tossed the cigarette over the fence and went back inside, planning to hop on my PC and game for a bit. That's when the power cut out. Great. I lit some candles and sat down with my phone. Was playing something to kill time when I heard it, a soft creaking sound from the attic, like slow footsteps, not stomping, just moving. Suddenly I remembered Buddy's barking. Maybe someone did get in, jumped over the fence. I grabbed a kitchen hatchet just in case. Yeah, it's a small house, not much worth stealing, but you never know who's desperate. I stepped outside quietly, trying not to crunch the snow. No tracks. None. Climbed up to the attic entrance. Still nothing. The attic door was latched from the outside. Weird. I unhooked it and shined my flashlight inside. Empty. Not a soul. But I know I heard someone walking. Smoked a cigarette while standing there, trying to make sense of it. Maybe I imagined it. Went back down. Still no power. House was dead silent. About 30 minutes later, noise again. Louder this time. Definite movement in the attic. Something scraping. I grabbed the hatchet and went up again. As I approached the door, the noise stopped. Gotcha now, you bastard, I thought. Swung the door open and burst in with the flashlight. Again, nothing, no one. Hello, who's up here? Show yourself. I checked every corner, empty, but I couldn't shake the chill crawling up my spine. I was starting to feel genuinely scared. Nothing made sense. I muttered some curses under my breath and headed for the door, and it slammed shut right in front of me. Wind, sure, it was strong, but how did the latch hook itself from the outside? It didn't make sense. Someone must have lured me up here to trap me while they raided the house. I smashed the door open with the hatchet and sprinted back down. House was untouched. Nothing missing, nothing out of place. I was completely alone. What the hell? I decided it was time for backup power. Fired up the generator. Lights came on in the house and outside. 5 minutes later, everything cut out again. Maybe the generator ran out of diesel. But I hadn't heard any sputtering, and I hadn't let go of the hatchet. Then more banging from the attic, this time violent, loud. Someone was up there. I went to grab my phone to call the cops. Dead, 0 battery. It was at 80% like an hour ago. Guess I drained it playing games. Idiot. Panicking now, I ran outside. Didn't want to go back up there alone. I stood at a distance where I could see all entrances and exits. No one came down. Nothing moved. I shouted, "Hey, I know you're up there. Come down, you freak." No response. Climbed up again. No tracks in the snow. Nothing. No sign of anyone. But I swear I saw a shadow flicker inside the attic window. That was how it went the entire night. Whispers, movement, shadows. Once I even heard a rasping voice like a hushed wheeze. Couldn't make out the words. I don't even believe in ghosts. I'm 22, I work out. I'm not the kind of guy who scares easy. But that night, I was terrified. At sunrise, power came back. I walked into the kitchen and my phone was just lying on the table, powered on. 50% battery. The generator still full of diesel, running perfectly. No reason for it to shut off. I never told my parents. They got home around noon. I just pretended everything was fine. I've never heard anything up there again. Not a creak, not a whisper. But I still wonder, what the hell was up in the attic that night? And I really don't want to believe it was a ghost.
They lived in a small house outside the city, surrounded by a dense forest. The house was old but cozy, with a large garden where the children loved to play. The husband, wife, and their 2 sons, 8-year-old Mark and nearly 6-year-old Joseph. The woman had always dreamed of having a daughter. She loved her sons and was proud of them, but the dream of a little girl had been with her since childhood. Her own mother had passed away early, and she had always wanted to feel the same bond she once had with her. After numerous visits to doctors, examinations, and tests, they learned the harsh truth. After her last childbirth, she could no longer have children. This news shattered her. She began to withdraw into herself, spending hours in her room staring out the window at the forest that had once inspired her. Seeing her in this state, her husband and children held a family meeting. After long discussions, they came to a decision. If they couldn't have a daughter of their own, they would adopt one. And so, 7-year-old Annabel joined their family. The girl was incredibly sweet, like a ray of sunshine glowing from within. Her golden hair and big blue eyes seemed so pure that even the forest around the house seemed to come alive with her smiles. Annabel quickly bonded with the boys, especially Mark, who became her best friend. Everything was going wonderfully. Joseph's birthday was approaching and the family was preparing a grand celebration. Balloons, garlands, a cake shaped like the boys' favorite hero. Everything was ready. But it was not meant to be. One rainy autumn evening, the couple went out to buy the last few things for the party: balloons, the cake, and so on. They left the children under Mark's supervision. They returned late at night after the rain had stopped, but the forest around the house seemed eerily quiet, as if waiting for something. They entered quietly, not wanting to wake the children. They turned off the TV in the living room. Mark had probably been watching it and forgot to turn it off as usual, and went upstairs to their bedroom. They decided to check on the children. Mark's room was empty, only scattered clothes and a messy bed. Frightened, they ran to the other rooms. But Joseph and Annabel were also missing, with only chaos left behind. Horrifying thoughts raced through their minds. Suddenly, a faint rustling sound came from their bedroom, as if someone was flipping through the pages of a book. The couple rushed to the door. What they saw there they would never forget. By the bed near the window lay Joseph's mutilated body. The boy was covered in blood, as if he had been bitten or clawed. His clothes were torn and his face was frozen in an expression of terror. In the far corner, Annabel sat with her back to them. The woman ran to the girl, wanting to hug her, but she wasn't scared. She was just sitting there, eating Mark. Annabel turned her head, chewing greedily. Her blue eyes, which had once seemed so pure, now burned in the dark like those of some insane creature. She looked at the woman and whispered, "Mommy, don't you love me anymore?" The woman began to back away toward her husband, who was sobbing over Joseph's body, while Annabel slowly crawled after her, never taking her eyes off her. The police broke down the door. A foul stench spilled out into the street. The neighbors had called them when the family stopped appearing. The police found 4 mutilated bodies. Amidst the horror sat the girl. She stared at the bloody bodies and muttered incessantly, "Mommy, don't you love me anymore?" Her voice was quiet, but every word echoed in the minds of the officers, who couldn't understand what had happened in that house. Later, it was revealed that Annabel was no ordinary girl. Her past was shrouded in mystery. She had been found in an abandoned house in the forest where the police had discovered several missing children. No one knew where she had come from, but now it was clear that she was not what she seemed.